The morning sun cast long shadows across the abandoned streets of Denver. As Captain Marcus Rodriguez adjusted his tactical vest and surveyed the desolate landscape through his binoculars. 3 months had passed since the outbreak began, and what started as isolated incidents in remote towns had now consumed entire cities. The official reports called it a viral pandemic, but Marcus knew better. The dead were walking and they were hungry. His radio crackled to life with the voice of Lieutenant Emma Thompson, her tone urgent yet controlled. "Captain, we've got movement in Sector 7. Looks like a horde, maybe 200 strong, heading toward the civilian safe zone at Lincoln Elementary." Marcus lowered his binoculars and felt his jaw tighten. The safe zone housed nearly 1,000 survivors, including women, children, and elderly who couldn't defend themselves. Dr. James Mitchell had been working tirelessly in his makeshift laboratory, a converted basement beneath the Denver Community Center, when the first screams echoed from above. He'd been so close to understanding the virus's mutation patterns, so close to finding a weakness in its structure. The screams grew louder, and he could hear the unmistakable sound of gunfire. His research partner, Dr. Rebecca Williams, burst through the laboratory door, her white coat stained with something dark. "James, they've broken through the eastern perimeter. The National Guard can't hold them back anymore." Her hands trembled as she grabbed essential research files. "We need to evacuate now, or we'll lose everything we've worked for." James looked at his computer screens displaying viral genome sequences, knowing that leaving now might mean abandoning humanity's best hope for a cure. Meanwhile, in the survivor camp's command center, Mayor David Patterson was making impossible decisions. The former city official had never imagined he'd be choosing who lived and who died, but the zombie apocalypse had thrust leadership upon him in ways no election ever could. "We can't take everyone," he said to the assembled group of survivors. "The convoy has space for maybe half our people." Tension filled the room as families clutched each other, knowing that separation might mean permanent goodbye. Teacher Amanda Foster stood up, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "Then we fight. Some of us stay and buy time for the others to escape." Her words sparked a heated debate among the survivors, but everyone knew she was right. Sacrifice was the only way any of them would see another sunrise. The zombie horde moved with terrifying purpose through the city streets, led by what appeared to be an evolved specimen that the survivors had dubbed alpha zombies. These creatures retained some intelligence and seemed capable of basic strategy, making them far more dangerous than the mindless undead they commanded. Sergeant Tyler Brooks, positioned on a rooftop with his sniper rifle, watched in horror as the Alpha directed groups of zombies to flank the human defenses. "This isn't random," he radioed to Captain Rodriguez. "They're learning, adapting. It's like they remember how to wage war." The revelation sent chills through the human forces. If the zombies were evolving, becoming smarter, then traditional military tactics might not be enough to stop them. In the underground tunnels beneath the city, a group of survivors had discovered something that could change everything. Lisa Patterson, the mayor's daughter and a former engineering student, had been exploring the old subway system when she stumbled upon a cache of military equipment left behind during the initial evacuation. "Dad, you need to see this," she called into her radio. The cache contained experimental weapons, advanced communications equipment, and most importantly, detailed maps of underground bunkers that could house thousands of survivors. But accessing these resources would require a dangerous mission through zombie-infested territory, and time was running out as the horde approached the safe zone. As night fell over Denver, the final preparations began. Captain Rodriguez assembled his best soldiers, knowing that many wouldn't survive the coming battle. Dr. Mitchell prepared to transport his crucial research to a secure location, while Dr. Williams worked frantically to synthesize a temporary immunity booster that might give the human fighters an edge. The survivors in the safe zone said their goodbyes, with some volunteering to stay and fight while others prepared for a desperate evacuation through the tunnel system. The alpha zombies' haunting howl echoed across the city, a sound that seemed to promise that this night would determine whether humanity had a future or if the world would belong to the walking dead. In 12 hours, the most crucial battle in human history would begin, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The survival of the entire human race hung in the balance, with both sides preparing for an epic clash that would decide the fate of all living things on Earth. Dawn broke over the city with an eerie crimson glow, as if the sky itself was bleeding. Lisa Patterson led her exploration team through the labyrinthine subway tunnels, their flashlights cutting through the darkness while the sound of distant zombie growls echoed from the surface above. The military cache she discovered was more extensive than anyone had imagined, but getting to it required navigating through sections of tunnel that hadn't been mapped since the old city expansion projects of the 1990s. Her team consisted of former police officer Jake Morrison, electrical engineer Christina Lopez, and her father's trusted aide, Michael Roberts. Each step forward brought them closer to potential salvation, but also deeper into unknown dangers lurking in the underground darkness. Meanwhile, Dr. Williams had made a breakthrough in her immunity research that could change everything. Working through the night in the makeshift laboratory, she discovered that certain individuals possessed a natural genetic resistance to the zombie virus, a mutation that occurred in roughly 1% of the population. "James, look at this," she called to Dr. Mitchell, pointing at the blood sample analysis on her computer screen. "These survivors aren't just lucky, they're genetically immune. If we can isolate and synthesize this genetic marker, we could create a vaccine that actually works." The revelation was both hopeful and terrifying, as it meant that most of humanity was inherently vulnerable, but those rare immune individuals could become the key to saving everyone else. On the surface, Captain Rodriguez and his tactical team discovered that the zombie horde wasn't just mindlessly attacking, they were following a carefully orchestrated plan. The alpha zombies had divided their forces into multiple waves, with the first wave serving as a distraction while the main force prepared to strike at the evacuation routes. Lieutenant Thompson had positioned herself on the hospital rooftop and was tracking zombie movements through her scope when she noticed something that made her blood run cold. "Captain, they're not just surrounding us," she radioed. "They're herding us toward the old industrial district. It's like they want us to go there." The strategic implications were staggering. If the zombies were capable of complex tactical thinking, then humanity was facing an enemy far more dangerous than anyone had realized. In the survivor camp, tensions reached a breaking point as resources dwindled and fear consumed rational thinking. Amanda Foster found herself mediating between two factions, those who wanted to make a desperate stand and fight to the death, and those who believed their only chance was immediate evacuation. Former firefighter Robert Chen argued passionately for the fighting option, his voice rising above the crowd. "We run now, we'll be running forever. These things will hunt us down no matter where we go." But Nurse Patricia Davis, who had been treating the wounded throughout the crisis, countered with equal passion. "We have children here, elderly people who can barely walk. Fighting isn't courage, it's suicide." The debate grew more heated as the sound of approaching zombies grew louder, forcing Mayor Patterson to make a decision that would affect everyone's fate. Deep in the tunnel system, Lisa Patterson's team reached the military cache, only to discover it was guarded by something unexpected, a group of survivors who had been living underground since the outbreak began. Their leader, former Army Ranger Daniel Wright, had transformed the abandoned subway station into a fortress complete with early warning systems and defensive positions. "You surface dwellers brought them down on us," Wright accused, gesturing toward the tunnels where zombie moans were growing louder. "They never came down here until your people started making noise up there." The confrontation threatened to turn violent until Christina Lopez noticed something crucial about the military equipment. It included experimental communication devices that could coordinate all survivor groups across the entire city. As the morning progressed, Dr. Mitchell received an encrypted radio transmission that changed everything. The message came from a government facility in Colorado Springs, where a team of scientists claimed to have developed a weaponized version of the virus that could turn zombies against each other. "We call it the Omega strain," the voice on the radio explained. "It creates a hierarchy among the infected, causing lower-level zombies to attack the alphas. But we need live alpha specimens to complete the testing." The proposal was as dangerous as it was promising: capture an alpha zombie alive and transport it to the government facility, potentially ending the war but risking everything if the mission failed. The revelation that immunity was genetic sparked a desperate search among the survivors to identify who might possess the crucial resistance. Amanda Foster volunteered for immediate blood testing, along with dozens of others, knowing that the results could determine who would be selected for dangerous missions and who would be protected at all costs. As Sergeant Brooks reported increasing zombie activity from his sniper position, the pressure mounted to make impossible decisions about who would risk their lives for the greater good. The underground cache offered hope, the genetic immunity provided a potential cure, and the Omega strain promised a weapon against the alpha zombies, but time was running out as the evolved undead closed in on all sides, forcing humanity to choose between desperate gambles and certain extinction. The blood test results arrived just as the first wave of zombies breached the outer perimeter, and the news was both devastating and miraculous. Of the 847 survivors tested, only 9 possessed the genetic immunity, including Amanda Foster and, surprisingly, 8-year-old Tommy Wilson, whose parents had been killed in the initial outbreak. Dr. Williams stared at the results with a mixture of hope and horror, realizing that these 9 individuals represented humanity's entire biological defense against extinction. "We have to get them to safety immediately," she urged Dr. Mitchell, but Amanda Foster had other plans. "I'm not running while people die," she declared, grabbing a rifle from the weapons cache. "If I can't be infected, then I can get closer to those things than anyone else can." Her decision sparked a fierce debate, but there was no time for discussion as the zombie horde smashed through the elementary school's fortified windows. Captain Rodriguez had positioned his forces in a defensive triangle around the evacuation routes, but the zombie attack pattern defied all military logic. Instead of a frontal assault, the alpha zombies had somehow coordinated a 3-pronged attack that struck simultaneously at the school, the hospital, and the subway entrance that Lisa Patterson's team was using. Lieutenant Thompson found herself trapped on the hospital roof as zombies poured up the stairwells from multiple floors, their movements too coordinated to be coincidental. "They're communicating somehow," she radioed to Rodriguez while laying down suppressing fire. "The alphas are using some kind of signal we can't hear or see." The tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly, and traditional military strategies were proving useless against an enemy that could adapt and learn in real time. Underground, Daniel Wright's fortress came under siege as zombies flooded the tunnel system from directions that should have been impossible to access. Lisa Patterson realized with growing horror that the undead had been using the old maintenance shafts and abandoned construction tunnels that weren't on any official city maps. "They've been down here longer than we thought," she told Wright as they activated the military communication equipment. "This isn't a random attack, they've been studying our movements for weeks." The revelation that zombies had been conducting reconnaissance changed everything, suggesting a level of intelligence that made them far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Wright's early warning systems had detected movement, but not from the directions they'd been monitoring. At the government facility in Colorado Springs, Dr. Sarah Bennett received Captain Rodriguez's desperate transmission requesting immediate extraction for the immune survivors. The Omega Strain project had reached a critical phase, but it required not just alpha specimens, but also immune human subjects to test the weaponized virus's effectiveness. "We can extract your immune survivors," Dr. Bennett radioed back, "but we need volunteers to stay behind and capture an alpha alive. The Omega strain won't work without understanding how the immunity gene interacts with the alpha variant." The request was essentially a suicide mission, asking people to voluntarily face the most dangerous zombies while the immune individuals who could survive such an encounter were evacuated to safety. Mayor Patterson faced the hardest decision of his life as he watched his daughter Lisa coordinate the tunnel defense while zombies closed in from all sides. The evacuation plan was falling apart, the military was overwhelmed, and the scientists needed time to complete their work. Standing in the command center with emergency lights flickering around him, he made an announcement that would define his legacy forever. "Anyone who wants to evacuate needs to leave now through Tunnel System Beta 7. Everyone else, we make our stand here." His voice carried across the radio to every survivor group, giving them one final choice between flight and fight. Patricia Davis immediately began organizing the evacuation of children and elderly, while Robert Chin rallied the fighters for what might be humanity's last battle. The immune survivors found themselves at the center of an impossible moral dilemma. Tommy Wilson's older sister, Jennifer, refused to let her little brother be taken away to safety while she faced certain death. Amanda Foster stood with her rifle ready, but Dr. Williams pulled her aside with urgent news. "Amanda, your immunity might be the key to more than just survival. Your blood could create a temporary vaccine for others, but only if you stay alive long enough for us to synthesize it." The weight of potentially saving hundreds of people fell on her shoulders, making her personal desire to fight seem selfish, yet abandoning her friends felt like betrayal. The other immune survivors faced similar choices, knowing that their genetic gift came with the burden of carrying humanity's hopes. As the sun reached its peak, the coordinated zombie assault reached its crescendo. Alpha zombies led organized formations of undead through the streets while underground, the tunnel fortress's defenses began to fail under overwhelming numbers. Sergeant Brooks reported massive zombie reinforcements approaching from the north, while Dr. Mitchell received word that the government extraction team was still hours away. The first major battle between evolved zombies and organized human resistance was about to begin, with both sides fighting not just for territory, but for the future of their species. The immune survivors had minutes to decide their fate, the tunnel defenders were running out of ammunition, and the Omega strain remained untested, leaving humanity's survival hanging by the thinnest of threads as the most dangerous day in human history reached its climactic moment. The decision came suddenly and without ceremony. Amanda Foster handed her rifle to Jennifer Wilson and looked directly at Dr. Williams. "Take my blood, synthesize what you can, but I'm staying to fight. These people need every advantage they can get." Before anyone could protest, she grabbed a combat knife and made a deep cut across her palm, letting her immune blood drip into the medical containers Dr. Williams had prepared. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone present. She was literally giving her life's blood to save others, knowing that the temporary vaccine might only work for hours but could mean the difference between survival and extinction for dozens of fighters. Tommy Wilson watched with 8-year-old eyes that had seen too much, understanding that the adults were making choices that would determine whether he had any future at all. Captain Rodriguez received the devastating news that the northern perimeter had completely collapsed just as the first immune blood samples were being distributed to volunteer fighters. Jake Morrison was among the first to receive the experimental injection, feeling the strange burning sensation as Amanda's processed blood entered his system. "How long do we have?" he asked Dr. Williams, who could only estimate based on preliminary data. "Maybe 6 hours of partial immunity, possibly less. Don't get cocky, you're resistant, not invulnerable." The temporary vaccine was administered to 24 volunteers, creating humanity's first immune strike force, but the biological protection came with a psychological burden that weighed heavily on every recipient. They were now humanity's spearhead, expected to venture where no one else could survive. In the tunnel fortress, Daniel Wright made a tactical decision that shocked everyone. Instead of retreating deeper underground, he ordered his people to blow the tunnel entrances behind the advancing zombies, trapping hundreds of undead in the subway system with his own forces. "We're not running anymore," he announced over the radio to Mayor Patterson. "We're going to use these tunnels as a killing field. Every zombie we destroy down here is one less attacking your people up there." Lisa Patterson stared at Wright with a mixture of admiration and horror, realizing that he was essentially sealing their fate to buy time for the surface defenders. Cristina Lopez worked frantically to establish communication links between all survivor groups, knowing that coordination would be crucial in the coming hours. The first test of the immune fighters came when Alpha Zombie designated Alpha 7 by the military encountered Amanda Foster in the school's main hallway. The creature that had once been a high school football coach retained enough intelligence to recognize that something was different about this human. Instead of the usual mindless charge, Alpha 7 circled Amanda cautiously, as if sensing that the normal rules didn't apply. The confrontation lasted only seconds, but it provided crucial intelligence. The Alphas could detect immune individuals and viewed them as a different category of threat. Amanda's radio crackled with her report. "They know we're different. They're treating immune fighters as priority targets." The revelation meant that the immune strike force would face the most dangerous zombies first, making their missions exponentially more perilous. Dr. Mitchell received an encrypted transmission from the government facility that changed the entire strategic picture. Dr. Bennett's voice was urgent and desperate. "The Omega strain has a fatal flaw. It works, but only for 72 hours before the affected zombies develop resistance. We need to deploy it simultaneously across multiple sites to prevent adaptation. Can your people coordinate a multi-city strike?" The request was staggering in scope. Instead of just saving Denver, they were being asked to participate in a global operation that could end the zombie threat permanently. But success required precise timing and coordination between survivor groups across the country, many of whom hadn't been in contact for months. Lieutenant Thompson's position on the hospital roof became the de facto command center for the immune strike operations. From her elevated position, she could coordinate the movements of immune fighters while providing sniper support against alpha targets. Her radio buzzed constantly with reports from immune team leaders. Jake Morrison had successfully cleared the east wing of zombies, Robert Chen was leading a group through the industrial district, and Patricia Davis was using her medical knowledge to identify zombie weak points that could be exploited by immune fighters. The temporary vaccine was working, but Thompson could see that the immune fighters were taking risks that would have been suicidal for normal humans, and she worried about the psychological toll of suddenly becoming superhuman in the face of humanity's extinction. The battle reached a turning point when young Tommy Wilson did something that nobody expected. Despite being evacuated with the other immune survivors, he slipped away from his handlers and returned to the battle zone, carrying a backpack full of medical supplies. His child's logic was simple but profound. If his blood could save people, then he needed to be where people were dying. Jennifer Wilson's horrified scream echoed through the tunnel system when she discovered her little brother was missing, But by then Tommy had already reached Dr. Williams and was offering his arm for another blood draw. The 8-year-old's courage inspired the adult survivors and immune fighters alike, proving that heroism wasn't about age or strength, but about the willingness to sacrifice for others. As the afternoon sun began its descent toward evening, the immune strike force prepared for their most dangerous mission yet, capturing an alpha zombie alive while the fate of multiple cities hung in the balance, and humanity's youngest hero stood ready to give everything he had to ensure that tomorrow would come for his species. Chat controls Sonnet 4. The mission to capture Alpha 7 alive required a level of coordination and bravery that pushed the immune strike team beyond anything they had imagined possible. Jake Morrison led the capture squad through the abandoned shopping district where the intelligent zombie had established what could only be described as a command post, complete with zombie sentries positioned at strategic intervals. Amanda Foster moved parallel to Morrison's team, using her permanent immunity to scout ahead and identify the Alpha's defensive patterns. Through her earpiece, she whispered tactical updates to Lieutenant Thompson, who was coordinating the operation from her rooftop position. "The Alpha isn't just hiding," Amanda reported. "It's set up kill zones and escape routes like it's expecting us." The revelation that Alpha 7 was capable of military-style defensive planning made the capture mission exponentially more dangerous, but also more crucial for understanding zombie evolution. Dr. Williams worked feverishly in her mobile laboratory, a converted ambulance that Christina Lopez had rigged with communication equipment to coordinate with the government facility. The latest blood samples from Tommy Wilson showed something remarkable: his immunity was even stronger than the adults, and his blood could potentially create a vaccine that lasted 12 hours instead of 6. "This child's genetic structure is extraordinary," Dr. Williams radioed to Dr. Bennett at the Colorado facility. "If we can synthesize his immunity markers properly, we might be able to create a permanent vaccine." But the process required sophisticated equipment that was only available at the government facility, meaning Tommy would have to be transported there personally, separated from his sister and the only family he had left in the world. In the underground tunnel system, Daniel Wright's gamble was paying off in ways no one had anticipated. The trapped zombies were not only fighting Wright's defenders, but they had begun fighting each other in the confined space. Patricia Davis, monitoring the situation from her medical station, observed something unprecedented through the tunnel security cameras. "The zombies are establishing a hierarchy down there," she reported to Mayor Patterson. "The stronger ones are dominating the weaker ones, just like the government facility predicted with the Omega strain." The observation suggested that zombie society was more complex than anyone had realized, and that the creatures might be susceptible to internal conflict that could be exploited by human forces. The capture operation began at sunset with a precision that would have impressed any military unit. Robert Chin and his team created a series of diversions to draw away the zombie sentries, while Jake Morrison's immune fighters moved into position around Alpha 7's command post. The Alpha zombie seemed to sense the approaching trap, its behavior becoming increasingly agitated as it paced within the ruins of what had once been a department store. Amanda Foster positioned herself as bait, knowing that her immunity made her the perfect target to lure the Alpha into the capture zone. The plan required split-second timing tranquilizer darts loaded with a sedative that Dr. Williams had specifically formulated for zombie physiology, followed by immediate containment in a specially modified transport cage. Sergeant Brooks provided overwatch from multiple sniper positions, but his role wasn't to kill, it was to provide covering fire if the capture attempt went wrong and the team needed to retreat. Through his scope, he watched as Amanda Foster stepped into the open courtyard area where Alpha 7 had been observed. The creature's reaction was immediate and terrifying. Instead of charging mindlessly, the Alpha zombie studied her with an intelligence that seemed almost human, circling slowly while making sounds that resembled communication attempts. "It's trying to talk to her," Brooks radioed in amazement. "The thing is actually trying to communicate." The moment stretched into eternity as two species' most evolved representatives faced each other in what might have been humanity's first diplomatic contact with the evolved undead. The capture itself happened in a blur of coordinated movement that lasted less than 30 seconds. Amanda Foster kept Alpha 7's attention focused on her while Jake Morrison's team fired tranquilizer darts from 3 different angles. The Alpha zombie's reaction speed was phenomenal. It dodged 2 of the darts and nearly escaped the capture zone before the 3rd dart found its target. Even tranquilized, the creature fought with such strength that it took 6 immune fighters to wrestle it into the containment cage that Christina Lopez had specially reinforced with steel plates and electronic locks. The successful capture represented humanity's first major victory against the evolved zombies, but it came at a cost that nobody had anticipated. During the capture operation, the remaining zombie forces launched a coordinated counterattack against the weakened human positions. With the immune fighters focused on the Alpha hunt, regular defenders found themselves overwhelmed at multiple points. Mayor Patterson was forced to order the evacuation of the elementary school safe zone as zombies broke through the perimeter in 3 places simultaneously. Tommy Wilson, still insisting on helping despite his age, worked alongside Dr. Williams to evacuate crucial research materials while Jennifer Wilson coordinated the retreat of civilian survivors through the tunnel system. The successful Alpha capture had cost them their primary safe zone, but it also provided humanity with its first live specimen of an evolved zombie, potentially unlocking the secrets needed to develop the Omega strain into a permanent solution. As night fell over Denver, the captured Alpha 7 was loaded onto a military transport helicopter while the scattered human survivors regrouped in secondary positions, knowing that tomorrow would bring either salvation or extinction, depending on what secrets the intelligent zombie could reveal about its species' plans for humanity. Chat controls Sonnet 4. The government facility in Colorado Springs received Alpha 7 at 0300 hours, and Dr. Sarah Bennett immediately began the most dangerous scientific study in human history. The captured Alpha zombie was contained in a reinforced cell designed to withstand superhuman strength, but nothing could prepare the research team for what they discovered when they began cognitive testing. Alpha 7 responded to mathematical problems, recognized patterns, and most disturbing of all, showed clear signs of memory retention from its human life. It remembers being human, Dr. Bennett radioed to Dr. Mitchell in Denver. This isn't just evolution, it's preservation of consciousness within a transformed body. The revelation that Alpha zombies retained their human memories while gaining enhanced physical abilities meant that humanity was fighting not just monsters, but former friends and family members who remembered their past lives. In Denver, the scattered survivor groups faced their darkest hour as zombie forces seemed to anticipate every defensive strategy the humans employed. Captain Rodriguez found himself commanding a fighting retreat through the city streets, with his forces outnumbered 10-1 and running dangerously low on ammunition. The immune fighters were showing signs of exhaustion despite their enhanced resistance, and Jake Morrison reported that the temporary vaccine's effectiveness was beginning to wane after only 4 hours instead of the expected 6. "We're losing our edge," he radioed to Lieutenant Thompson. "Whatever advantage we had is disappearing fast." The biological protection that had given humanity hope was proving less reliable than expected, forcing tactical decisions based on increasingly desperate circumstances. Tommy Wilson's journey to the government facility became a nightmare when his transport convoy was ambushed by a coordinated zombie force that seemed specifically targeting the immune child. Jennifer Wilson, who had insisted on accompanying her brother despite the dangers, watched in horror as Alpha zombies emerged from hidden positions along the highway with military precision. The convoy's security detail, led by former Special Forces operative Marcus Stone, realized they were facing an enemy that had planned this ambush with intelligence that rivaled human tactical thinking. "They knew we were coming," Stone reported over the radio. "This wasn't random, they wanted the kid specifically." The targeting of Tommy suggested that the zombies understood the strategic importance of immune individuals and were actively working to eliminate humanity's genetic advantages. Dr. Williams made a breakthrough in her mobile laboratory that changed everything about the Omega Strain project. While analyzing blood samples from both immune survivors and Alpha 7, she discovered that the zombie virus wasn't just mutating randomly, it was adapting specifically to counter human immune responses. "The virus is learning," she reported to the government facility. "Every time we develop resistance, it develops counter-resistance. It's like fighting an enemy that can read our biological playbook." The discovery meant that any vaccine or treatment would have a limited window of effectiveness before the virus adapted, making the Omega strain humanity's only chance for a permanent solution that could work faster than viral adaptation. In the underground tunnel system, Daniel Wright's fortress had become a battlefield laboratory where Patricia Davis documented zombie behavior under controlled conditions. The trapped zombies had indeed established a clear hierarchy, with stronger individuals dominating weaker ones, but more importantly, they had begun showing signs of cooperation and planning that suggested group intelligence. "They're not just animals anymore," Davis reported to Mayor Patterson. "They're developing a society down here, complete with leadership structures and division of labor." The observation confirmed the government facility's theories about the Omega strain's potential effectiveness, but it also revealed that humanity was running out of time before zombie society became too organized to defeat. The ambush on Tommy Wilson's convoy escalated into a running battle across 30 miles of highway, with immune fighters using every advantage their enhanced resistance provided. Amanda Foster had volunteered to join the convoy's protection detail, and her permanent immunity allowed her to engage alpha zombies in close combat that would have been suicide for anyone else. During the fighting, she made a discovery that changed the entire strategic picture. The alphas are communicating through pheromones, she radioed to the scientific teams. I can smell it when they're coordinating attacks. It's like a chemical language we never noticed before. The revelation explained how zombie forces could coordinate complex operations without electronic communication, but it also provided a potential weakness that could be exploited. Sergeant Brooks, providing sniper support for the convoy battle, observed something that made his blood run cold. The zombie forces attacking Tommy Wilson's transport weren't trying to kill the child, they were trying to capture him alive. They want him breathing, Brooks reported with growing alarm. Every shot they take is non-lethal. They're trying to take the kid prisoner. The implications were staggering. If zombies understood the strategic value of immune individuals, they might be planning to use immune humans for their own purposes, possibly to develop their own biological weapons or to create hybrid zombie-human creatures with enhanced abilities. As dawn broke over the battlefield, Tommy Wilson's convoy finally reached the government facility, but at a terrible cost. Half the escort vehicles had been destroyed, Marcus Stone was critically wounded, and Jennifer Wilson had been exposed to zombie pheromones during the fighting, making her potentially trackable by alpha zombies. The successful delivery of Tommy to the facility meant that the Omega Strain project could finally move to human trials, but the evidence of zombie strategic thinking and biological adaptation meant that humanity's window for victory was closing rapidly, forcing scientists and soldiers alike to make desperate choices about the future of both species. Chat controls Sonnet 4. Inside the Colorado Springs facility, Dr. Sarah Bennett made the discovery that would either save humanity or doom it forever. The combination of Alpha 7's genetic material, Tommy Wilson's enhanced immunity, and the Omega strain created something unprecedented, a hybrid virus that could reprogram zombie behavior without destroying their enhanced physical abilities. We're not just talking about killing zombies anymore, Dr. Bennett explained to the assembled team of scientists and military leaders. We can potentially convert them back to human consciousness while retaining their improved strength and intelligence. But there's a catch. The process requires a willing alpha zombie subject, and we have no idea if Alpha 7 will cooperate or if this will even work on a large scale. The revelation that humanity might be able to restore zombies to human consciousness changed the entire moral framework of the war. In Denver, the scattered survivor groups received an emergency broadcast that changed everything. Dr. Williams had decoded the zombie pheromone communication system and discovered that the creatures were planning a massive coordinated assault on all remaining human strongholds within 72 hours. The attack would involve alpha zombies from multiple cities converging on Denver, creating an army thousands strong that would overwhelm any conventional defense. Captain Rodriguez gathered his remaining forces and made an announcement that defined their desperate situation. We have 3 days to either evacuate everyone or implement the Omega strain globally. There won't be a fourth day. The countdown had begun, and every survivor knew that their next decisions would determine whether humanity survived as a species. Jennifer Wilson's exposure to zombie pheromones had an unexpected consequence that Dr. Williams discovered during routine medical monitoring. Instead of making her trackable by zombies, the pheromone exposure had created a unique biological bridge between human and zombie biochemistry. She can sense their communications now, Dr. Williams reported with amazement. Jennifer is picking up zombie pheromone signals like a biological radio receiver. The development made Jennifer the first human capable of understanding zombie tactical communications in real time, providing an intelligence advantage that could change the course of the war. But the biological changes also meant that Jennifer was becoming something between human and zombie, raising questions about whether she would remain loyal to humanity. At the government facility, Tommy Wilson surprised everyone by volunteering for the most dangerous part of the Omega strain experiment. The 8-year-old had learned that the hybrid virus needed to be tested on an immune human first, and his enhanced genetic resistance made him the ideal candidate. If my blood can save people, then use it, he told Dr. Bennett with a maturity that belied his age. The test required injecting Tommy with a modified version of the zombie virus, knowing that his immunity should protect him while allowing scientists to observe how the Omega strain affected human-zombie hybrid genetics. The risks were enormous. If Tommy's immunity failed, humanity would lose its most genetically valuable survivor. Lieutenant Thompson coordinated the most ambitious military operation in human history as survivor groups across the country prepared for synchronized Omega strain deployment. The plan required immune fighters in 12 major cities to simultaneously release the weaponized virus into zombie populations, creating a cascade effect that would spread the Omega strain globally within hours. Amanda Foster led the Denver deployment team, but the mission required her to venture deep into zombie-controlled territory and release the virus at the exact moment that Tommy Wilson's test began at the government facility. "We get one shot at this," Thompson radioed to all teams. "If the timing is off by even minutes, the zombies will adapt before the strain can take effect." Alpha 7's response to the hybrid virus shocked every scientist at the facility. Instead of becoming more docile or reverting to human consciousness, the intelligent zombie began demonstrating abilities that surpassed both human and zombie capabilities. It solved complex puzzles, showed empathy for injured researchers, and most remarkably, began speaking in a hybrid language that combined human words with pheromone signals that Jennifer Wilson could translate. "It's becoming something new," Dr. Bennett reported with a mixture of awe and terror. "Not human, not zombie, but a third option we never considered." The development suggested that the Omega strain might not restore the status quo, but create an entirely new form of intelligent life. The final countdown began with devastating news from the perimeter scouts. Zombie armies from surrounding states had begun converging on Denver, moving with a coordination that suggested not just tactical intelligence, but strategic planning on a scale that rivaled human military operations. Mayor Patterson made the hardest decision of the war, ordering all civilian survivors to evacuate to the government facility while the immune fighters prepared for humanity's last stand. Daniel Wright's underground fortress had become command central for the operation, with Patricia Davis coordinating medical support and Jake Morrison leading strike teams through the tunnel system. As Tommy Wilson's test began in Colorado Springs and Amanda Foster's team prepared to deploy the Omega strain in Denver, the fate of humanity balanced on the edge of a knife. The moment of truth arrived as zombie armies surrounded Denver from all directions while Tommy Wilson received his injection at the government facility. Jennifer Wilson, now serving as humanity's zombie communication specialist, reported massive pheromone activity suggesting that the alpha zombies knew about the Omega strain and were preparing countermeasures. The final battle between humans and zombies was about to begin, but nobody knew whether they were fighting for human survival, zombie extinction, or the birth of an entirely new species that would inherit the Earth from both of their dying civilizations. Chat Control Sonnet 4. The Omega strain deployment began at exactly 1,400 hours across 12 cities simultaneously, but the results were unlike anything the scientists had predicted. Instead of simply turning zombies against each other, the weaponized virus created a cascade of consciousness restoration that rippled through the undead populations like wildfire. Amanda Foster watched in amazement as the zombies surrounding her Denver deployment site suddenly stopped their coordinated attack and began exhibiting confused, almost human behavior. "They're remembering," she radioed to Lieutenant Thompson. "The zombies are remembering who they used to be." The sight of former zombies collapsing to their knees in horror as their human memories returned was both heartbreaking and miraculous, proving that consciousness had never truly died within the infected bodies. At the government facility, Tommy Wilson's test injection produced results that defied all scientific understanding. The 8-year-old didn't just survive the hybrid virus, he began exhibiting abilities that combined the best aspects of human intelligence and zombie enhancement. His reaction time increased dramatically, his strength doubled, and most remarkably he could communicate directly with both humans and the transformed zombies using a combination of speech and pheromone signals. Dr. Sarah Bennett documented everything with trembling hands, realizing that Tommy had become the first member of a new evolutionary branch that could bridge the gap between species. "He's not losing his humanity," she reported with wonder. "He's expanding it." Jennifer Wilson's unique biological connection to zombie communication proved crucial as the global transformation began. She served as interpreter between the newly conscious former zombies and the human survivors, helping traumatized individuals understand what had happened to them during their time as undead. Many of the restored humans retained enhanced physical abilities from their zombie phase, creating a population of superhumans who struggled with the memory of their actions while infected. "They remember everything they did," Jennifer reported to her brother over the radio. "Every person they hurt, every family they destroyed. The guilt is overwhelming them." The psychological rehabilitation of millions of restored humans became humanity's new challenge, replacing the fight for survival with the struggle for redemption. Alpha 7's transformation at the government facility became the template for understanding the new hybrid species that Tommy Wilson represented. The former alpha zombie had developed beyond either human or zombie capabilities, demonstrating problem-solving skills that surpassed both species while maintaining emotional connections to human values like compassion and sacrifice. Dr. Bennett's team discovered that Alpha 7 could accelerate the consciousness restoration process in other zombies simply through pheromone communication, effectively becoming a teacher for the newly transformed. It's not just evolution, Dr. Bennett realized. It's guided evolution where intelligence shapes its own development. The battle for Denver ended not with violence, but with the most extraordinary transformation in human history. As the Omega strain spread through the zombie armies, thousands of undead creatures suddenly found themselves human again, surrounded by the devastation they had unknowingly caused. Captain Rodriguez found himself commanding not a military operation, but a massive humanitarian effort to provide medical and psychological support to the restored humans. Daniel Wright's underground fortress became a refuge center where former zombies could safely process their returned memories while learning to control their enhanced abilities. The tunnels that had been battlefields hours earlier were now filled with tears of reunion as restored humans recognized survivors they had once hunted. Dr. Williams made the final breakthrough that ensured the transformation's permanence. By analyzing Tommy Wilson's hybrid genetics, she developed a stabilizing serum that prevented the virus from reverting or adapting, making the consciousness restoration irreversible. The serum also allowed normal humans to voluntarily undergo enhancement, gaining zombie-level physical abilities while retaining full human consciousness and values. "We're not just surviving anymore," she announced to the assembled survivors and restored humans. "We're evolving into something better than either species could become alone." The choice between remaining fully human or accepting enhancement became the defining decision of the new era. 6 months after the Omega strain deployment, the world had transformed beyond recognition. Cities were being rebuilt by populations that combined human creativity with enhanced physical capabilities. Tommy Wilson, now recognized as the first of the hybrid species, established schools where enhanced humans learned to use their abilities for construction, exploration, and scientific advancement rather than destruction. Jennifer Wilson became humanity's first ambassador to the enhanced populations, using her unique communication abilities to facilitate cooperation between different levels of human evolution. The former zombie apocalypse had become humanity's greatest evolutionary leap forward. The final chapter of the war between zombies and humans ended not with victory or defeat, but with unity. Former enemies worked together to build a world where enhanced abilities served human values, where the memories of the dark times motivated everyone to create something better. Amanda Foster, now leading enhanced construction teams, looked out over the rebuilt Denver skyline and reflected on how close humanity had come to extinction, only to discover that their salvation lay not in destroying their enemies, but in understanding that both species could become something greater together. The epic clash between zombies and humans had indeed decided the fate of the human race, not through destruction, but through transformation into a new form of life that honored both the strength of the undead and the consciousness of the living, ensuring that the future would belong not to humans or zombies, but to something wonderfully unprecedented that embodied the best qualities of both. Chat controls Sonnet 4.